Hello everyone, Briximus Prime, back at it again this year for another top 10 Star Wars The Black Series figures, but of 2023 this time. And yes, we're just going to be going over all my figures that I got from this year. Now again, not all of these are brand new releases that came out this year, but a majority of them are pretty much, and I do really love all these figures, but I also haven't reviewed all of these yet. So, with that being said, let's just get into the honorable mentions. We have the Ahsoka series, Huang, and the Galaxy's Edge Doc Ondar. Both of these figures pretty much are in this part of the list for the same reason. I like both of them, and their detail is great. The accessories are pretty good. My only issue is that these are figures that I don't really play around with very often because they're really one of those figures that aren't really in action-packed poses or really doing much. So really, you just kind of pose them once and then you kind of leave them alone for a while. So that's only why they're lower on the list, just because their play value, at least for me, isn't very high. And now getting into number 10, we have the Star Wars The Black Series Special Edition 2-pack from Andor, the Andor series. And it's, Cassian Andor and his B, the little red droid. I like the 2-pack. I'm really glad because I was able to get this 2-pack for pretty cheap off of Big Bad Toy Store. Normally this is like a, $45 2-pack, but I managed to get it off Big Bad Toy Store for I think it was like 20 bucks even, so that's pretty good. And again, the Andor himself is really great, and obviously the B droid is also just a nice little addition to the collection. But overall, I didn't like these guys as much to them being on the list, but I wanted to make sure they were in my top 10. Now, this is kind of cheating a little bit. Number 9 is kind of a 2-in-1, but I only do that because they're pretty much the same figure. I have the Walmart exclusive Jesse and Fives in their ARC Trooper outfits. Now again, these are two entirely separate characters and action figures, but I'm only grouping them together here because they're both 501st ARC Troopers that were Walmart exclusives, and they're basically the exact same figure, and my opinion on them is also the exact same. And so, but I like these clones, I love these characters, I'm glad to have them. It's just again, there's a lot more figures on this list that have a little bit more play value to me, but that being said, the clones here I always end up picking up and playing around with more than others. And now getting into number 8, we then have another Clone Wars related action figure. This is the Separatist Magna Guard. I absolutely love General Grievous, and I've always loved the other Separatist droids. I don't know what it was, but ever since I was younger, I was always fascinated with the Separatists and the droids, and so that's what I had the majority in terms of action figures. And I remember the Magna Guard being one of my favorite 3 3/4-inch action figures that I owned, so when they announced that they were making a Magna Guard in the Black Series, I knew I absolutely had to have him, and yeah, he's absolutely worth the hype. Now, going back to Clone Troopers again, we're going to be talking about the Republic Commando Scorch. Scorch was the last clone I needed left from from Delta Squad in order to complete the whole squad, and Scorch here I think definitely was what a way for the squad to wrap up. This Scorch here is definitely probably the best of the 4 in terms of accessories, paint, and also his character is very memorable from the game. And just in terms of just everything, that you get here for the price, I'd say Scorch is probably the best for his worth out of all of them. Now going into number 6, we have another Clone Wars related figure. We have the Star Wars The Black Series Pre-Vizsla from the Death Watch, and I've always wanted an action figure of Pre-Vizsla when I was younger, and then now that I've kind of grown up past the 3 3/4-inch figures and I've grown up into the Black Series, I absolutely needed a Pre-Vizsla Black Series, and I do love this figure, but the problem is the only thing that is hindering this figure from him going higher on the list is his elbows don't even bend in that far, and it really hinders a lot of his cool poses and articulation, and I wish they could have bent in more. But besides that, this guy would have been higher on the list. Now going into number 5, we have the Star Wars The Black Series Book of Boba Fett Black Chrysanthemum. I skipped out on the comic book Black Chrysanthemum because I didn't like the way how that art style looked, but I love the realistic look of this Black Series a lot more. And also, I appreciate his big rifle and just how big and chunky this guy is. He feels worth that deluxe figure price point that Hasbro has been placing him at. And again, the only issue why he's not higher on the list is because a lot of his articulation is hindered in a lot of areas, kind of similar to like Black Series Chewbacca and a bunch of other Wookiees that have been in the Black Series. His head just doesn't pose as often, and his shoulders are a little hindered, and I just feel, and sometimes it's even really hard to just have him double wield his gun. Like, it's really hard to get certain cool poses out of him, and I just wish they gave him just a little bit more flexibility. Now getting into number 4, we have the Star Wars The Black Series Solo A Star Wars Story Infus Nest and Swoop Bike. Now, I have this here on the list because the Infus Nest figure, well, the character has always been someone of interest to me in the Star Wars universe, because for some reason we never see Infus Nest like anywhere in media outside of a few comics and from the Solo A Star Wars Story movie. And she seems like such an interesting character, and I love how much love and work Hasbro put into this action figure. She has so much detail. She has the cloth cloak and the cape that's has different colors. And then, of course, the swoop bike itself is absolutely amazing. And on top of that, I got this figure at a convention for only $25, where normally this is like a $40, $50 boxed set. So I am very satisfied that I was able to get this. And now getting into number 3, we have the Star Wars The Black Series Knights of the Old Republic Darth Malak. I am very happy that Hasbro is now starting to dip their toes a whole lot more into the Knights of the Old Republic, because now that we have Revan, we now have Darth Malak and a bunch of others on the way, and even some that I don't even have yet, and I'm sure Hasbro still has more planned for the future. Please do an HK-47. But overall, I absolutely love how Malak came out. He has great detail. I love the lightsaber, his hilt, but I also was really satisfied that Hasbro gave this guy the cloth goods for his cape. I'm really glad that they're starting to give him cloth goods again, and also that the cloth goods are able to actually pose pretty well. They don't seem very unmanageable. Same thing goes with the Magna Guard. Forgot to mention that. He also has the cloth goods as well. And now getting into number 2. Now this is a figure I have always wanted. It's the Star Wars The Black Series Return of the Jedi Anniversary Boba Fett. Now, ever since I was younger and as I've grown up, I've always wanted the most detailed action figure of Boba Fett you could possibly get. Now this figure isn't entirely that, but that being said, I feel like this Boba Fett action figure manages to pull off a lot of poses. It has the right amount of accessories, and it manages to do everything that high-end figures manage to do for hundreds of dollars for less than half that kind of cost. This figure only costs $30, and yet I feel like it manages to achieve everything that figures worth $100 manage to achieve. The only thing this figure would be missing to be on that same level would probably be a removable helmet and interchangeable hands. And I've just always loved Boba Fett. Boba Fett has always been one of my favorite Star Wars characters of all time, and so this figure really satisfies a need that I've been having for years and years and years. But he barely just didn't scratch the itch for my number 1. And getting into my number 1, it is the Star Wars The Black Series Knights of the Old Republic Darth Malgus. Malgus has been one of my favorite if not the favorite character besides Darth Revan in Knights of the Old Republic. And I've absolutely adored this character, and when I heard the rumors that Hasbro was planning on making a Star Wars The Black Series figure of him, I knew I absolutely had to get him. And as soon as I saw those pictures and I saw what he looked like, I already knew from the get-go he was going to be my figure of the year for Black Series. And yeah, he did not disappoint at all. He just won he took the win from Boba Fett by a small margin, just because I'm really satisfied with this guy and the fact that I cannot put him down. As soon as I pick this figure up, I'm playing around with him for hours and hours on end before I put him back down again. So yeah, that is basically it for my top 10 Star Wars The Black Series figures of the year. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought. And yeah, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, for more action figure content and Black Series reviews. And I'll catch you guys next time. May the Force be with you, always.